This was a defining week for Donald Trump's legal legacy, from a retirement that can reshape the Supreme Court to a smackdown of Trump's border policy that you might not have heard about yet, to this controversial ruling on presidential power.
We began with a major Supreme Court victory for President Trump. The court declaring his travel ban on citizens of several Muslim-majority countries is legal.
This is the third version of the attempt to restrict travel from mostly Muslim countries.
The court said the travel ban is constitutional because it does conform to a law which, since 1952, has given every president the broad authority to restrict entry to this country.
The Supreme Court upholding the most controversial thing Donald Trump has probably done with his immigration power. He refined his once blatant calls for an illegal Muslim ban into a country-based ban that the court said did meet the test for avoiding religious discrimination, while passionate dissents on the court likened this new decision to upholding the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II, a line that clearly hit its mark and drew Justice John Roberts into a very rare response, announcing this week that the court was wrong to ever endorse internment. And the dissenters responded to that acidly. Justice Sotomayor telling Roberts the travel ban decision merely replaces one gravely wrong decision with another. Justice Kennedy departs this court now after decades of service, but he leaves a court that is actually battling some of the same immigration dilemmas of bygone eras. I don't think he could have predicted that one of his last decisions would tackle that internment. And today's debates over refugees actually channel a Casablanca-style set of questions like who we owe a duty to help get out of harm's way. Who should we let into America? And there's nothing new about isolationism in our politics or culture, something we've talked about on this show before. Remember, in that movie, Humphrey Bogart played a man who was simply done with the world's problems. And the film depicted his world weariness quite sympathetically, figuring that people could relate to his notion that sometimes it's hard to be noble and that people's refugee problems, well, maybe they don't amount to much.
Where I'm going, you can't follow. What I've got to do, you can't be any part of. Ilsa, I'm no good at being noble, but it doesn't take much to see that the problems of three little people don't amount to a hill of beans in this crazy world.
This may be a good time to recall it was Bogart's character who ultimately evolved, risking his life to help refugees. And that's the spirit that many of Trump's critics have been drawing on to condemn his very punitive approach to people fleeing danger to get to our border. These orders that isolate and orphan innocent children and set up these tent camps, settling them for tender-age baby migrant shelters. And we also saw those shocking images and heard the disturbing audio of children crying for their parents, all because the U.S. government has split them apart. Many asking the big question, how do you end this?
What is ultimately going to end what Trump has done with these thousands of kids who are spread out all over the country right now, tonight without their moms and dads, what's ultimately going to end it is going to be local activism and local advocates putting these families back together.
Ending it. With everything happening this week, it would be easy to miss the news that Trump actually lost this fight twice. First, under waves of pressure that led him to narrow that order. Then, a judge taking it further, ordering on Wednesday the White House legally must reunite these families, noting the facts set forth portray reactive governance, responses to address a chaotic circumstance of the government's own making. That's the Trump administration's own making. The judge saying this belies measured and ordered governance. So here we see the law was able to basically take those families and try to put them back together. And note that immigrants do have a right to some due process. That's a sign that the courts do still work, though who leads them is now, I can tell you, the defining question of the Trump presidency because of what happened this week.
Justice Kennedy of the Supreme Court today just handed us this letter dated today. It says, My dear Mr. President, this letter is a respectful and formal notification of my decision effective July 31st of this year to end my regular active service as Associate Justice of the Supreme Court.
That was big news. Justice Kennedy, a part of many decisions, including upholding the travel ban, which was controversial. But in that same opinion, he does leave a final message. He knew, we didn't when he wrote this, that this was one of his last messages. An anxious world must know our government remains committed always to the liberties the Constitution seeks to preserve and protect so that freedom extends outward and lasts. Was he talking to the president? There's no single vacancy in the entire government right now with more long-term consequences than Kennedy's seat. His replacement could decide some of America's largest questions for more than a generation. Now, this open spot is up to the president to fill and the Senate to confirm, and it will impact how America operates long after Donald Trump is out of office. Democrats vowing to apply the McConnell standard and force Republicans to wait until after the midterms.
We hold Mitch McConnell to the precedent that he set in 2016.
When our fundamental liberties are in danger, and we're going to use every tool available, and we will possibly be creative about some new ones.
Based on every conversation I've had with my colleagues so far this afternoon, everybody's prepared to play hardball.
This is not a drill. There's no bigger fight in American politics right now than this fight over this court, which is also a fight over what justice will actually comprise in this unfolding Trump era in America. Courts are the last constraint on political passions. As Alexander Hamilton wrote, why has government been instituted at all? Because the passions of men will not conform to the dictates of reason and justice without constraint. I repeat, without constraint. That word, constraint, may not sound all that exciting, but it was constraint that ultimately stemmed some of the excesses of Trump's anti-family orders at the border. It was constraint that Justice Kennedy invoked after 9/11. He ruled that even accused terrorists do get due process in America because this is America. You can bet that wasn't a popular position then. It probably wouldn't have won a popular vote. But justice is not about what's popular in the moment. Just as that cold isolationism in the face of other people's problems may be momentarily appealing at different times, it is also not always the best reflection of our idealism or of the due process that our Constitution affords human beings. This is a momentous time. It is no time to let up or tune out, and certainly no time to give up. It's a time to stand up because America's High Court not only hangs in the balance, America's founding values are on the line too. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.